Welcome back into the Sportsmemo NFL Every Game on the Board podcast, where we're going the bottom half of the NFL card with our next guest up, Robbie Veno. Robbie, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing good today, Drew. How about yourself?
Good. Happy Friday to you. And
Yeah.
what? Just your last card you released 5-0 on the college basketball. What was that Wednesday night card, Robbie?
That was Wednesday night. Yep. Nice little 5-0. Got them all home. So, big days like that are nice. They're always nice. When things fall into place, Drew, you handicap them when they go according to what you see. That's a good day.
Yeah, so a 5-0 day. The next day, that night, your wife is a little prettier, your kids are a little nicer. Is that how it works?
Oh man, I think they're always that. But I've said it before, I'm probably a little more eager to get on to what's next. When you have a good day, you're especially eager to move on to whatever's up on tap next. For us, it's a lot of hoop and a lot of bowl games, so they get up on you real quick.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the right mindset to win in this business. On to the future, don't dwell on the past. We got the bottom half of the NFL card here, Robbie, and your 5% have been great this season, both in college and the NFL ranks. So check out sportsmemo.com for his 5% NFL play this weekend. Also, we have a special coupon code Veno half. That's VENOHALF. For half off any of his all access for the next 3 days. We'll be offering that, and you can get the 3-day, the 7-day, 30-day, 90-day all access. So a lot of savings there, up to $150 worth of savings with that coupon code on any of Rob Veno's all access packages, which will give you access to college basketball, NBA, NFL, college football, any play that Rob Veno releases, and you can get half off any all access at sportsmemo.com with the coupon code Veno half. Robbie, let's start off with 119-120, and we'll do the Army-Navy game at the end if that's all right with you. But first NFL game up, LA Rams, Chicago Bears. Looks like the Rams laying 3 on the road in Soldier Field, 51.5 the total.
Yeah, I think the immediate question that's been asked a lot this week, Drew, is how will the Rams perform, especially quarterback Jared Goff, in what's expected to be very cold temperatures, below freezing in Chicago, 27-degree temps projected for game time here. Obviously, this game was moved to the Sunday night game. Flex scheduling allows that. So we'll see how Jared Goff, California kid, played at Cal, plays for the Rams, not much experience in freezing cold weather. We'll see if it has any effect on him or not. The Rams, if we look at them first, Drew, from a defensive standpoint, it looks like they're on the upswing on the defensive side of the ball. They only allowed Detroit. Now, we know Detroit's got a limited offense, but they only allowed 310 total yards last week, 4.8 yards per play. That's comparable, very comparable to Chicago's defense, which I know everybody considers to be top-tier elite level defense this NFL season. But the week before, against the same Detroit Lions, Chicago allowed 333 total yards. You can see 310, 333, both numbers right in the ballpark. The Rams have another week of Aqib Talib back at corner, which is good. He was on a snap count prior to this. I think he'll be good to go in this game. So the defense, which has been, ripped apart, to be honest, for a good portion of this season, seems to be on an upswing last couple of weeks. Mitch Trubisky probably back here for the Bears. That'll help, although Chase Daniel was not horrible. 2 games played by Chase Daniel, 53 of 76. That's 69.7%. 3 TDs, a couple interceptions. Of course, one goes for a pick 6, which didn't help last week against the Giants, but Daniel wasn't horrible. Still, with Trubisky back, it's a better football team. The Bears were 5-0 ATS up until that game last week in their last 5 games, so now riding a 5-1 against the spread streak into this game. While the Rams have been pretty serious money burners, Drew, 2-6-1 against the spread last 9 games. So as good as the Rams are, they're not covering numbers, overvalued certainly by the odds makers here. The Bears have been 5-1 at home against the spread this year, so a lot of those ATS technical style numbers would point towards the Chicago Bears in this case. The Rams did clinch their division last week, but they need to keep winning. Obviously, they've got New Orleans on their heels for the number 1 seed overall in the NFL. So I expect full focus out of both of these teams for this contest. I think when push comes to shove, this game's going to be decided by the Rams' ground game. Can Todd Gurley dent the Bears' run defense, which ranks number 2 in the NFL, 86 yards per game? If the Bears put a halt to Todd Gurley's running in this contest, I think they win. I'd probably look that way. Haven't played it yet, but I'd probably look towards the Bears in that contest.
Robbie, next game up, 1-2-1, 1-2-2. New York Giants, Washington Redskins. Looks like 41 being the total. Mostly 3.5s, couple threes with juice, but the prevailing number being 3.5. That's the New York Giants laying it on the road.
How about if we just go down the list of Washington Redskin problems right now, Drew? I mean, we could start with they're on a short work week this week, played Monday night. Follow that up with the fact that they're on their third quarterback now. Mark Sanchez is the quarterback for the remainder of this season. You can look at their defense, which was reliable the first half of the season. But how about the last 5 weeks? 436 total yards allowed to Philly, 404 total yards allowed to Dallas. Gave up only 320 to Houston, but that number's a little deceptive because Houston did it on only 58 plays. So they had a good offensive day against the Redskins. Prior to that, they only gave up a field goal to Tampa Bay, 16-3 win, but they gave up over 500 yards in that contest. So another deceptive game there. And then 491 total yards to the Atlanta Falcons. You get the idea. The last 5 games, this defense has been non-existent. Some big names on the D, and like I say, they had played real well for a good portion of this season. But last 5 weeks, not good. Obviously, Monday night it wasn't good against the Philadelphia Eagles. They allow 28 first downs. They get doubled up in time of possession. Just a mess defensively right now for the Washington Redskins. The passing game, obviously, with Mark Sanchez, takes a step down. They only got 131 passing yards against a banged-up Eagles secondary on Monday night. Offensive lines, injury-riddled, depleted. There's just a whole laundry list of troubles for the Redskins heading into this game. Thus, we see the Giants, a sub-500 team all season long, as 3.5-point favorites here. But the Giants have played well lately, 4-1-1 against the spread last 6 games. Only loss against the spread in their last 6 was against these Washington Redskins, 20-13 in Giant Stadium. But the offense for the Giants has gotten a spark along the way, Drew. 22 points or more scored in their last 4 games, an average of 29.3. So you wonder where the offense all of a sudden has come from. A little bit of protection for Eli Manning. Some of it has to do with the opponents they've played. Some of it has to do with maybe they are getting a hair bit better. Saquon Barkley's been a beast. Just for, people who like to watch I like to call it the TMZ type of stuff. You get Josh Norman against Odell Beckham here in a head-to-head matchup, which should be fun. It always is. But I think despite all the problems that I just listed for the Redskins, they need this win to stay alive in the NFC East. Now, it's important to note that if the Redskins win here and the Eagles win, the NFC East becomes a 3-way tie at 7-6. Not only does it become a 3-way tie with overall record, but it becomes a 3-way tie in divisional records. All 3 of those teams, Dallas, Philly, and Washington, would end up 3-2 inside the division. I expect a 100% focus out of the Redskins, a top-notch effort. Whether or not the personnel is good enough right now is another question, but I don't want to be laying 3.5 on the road with the Giants. I'd be more apt to take those points with a Washington Redskin team that I think will give you 60 minutes of football here. Chris Thompson and Jamison Crowder back, although Josh Doxson may not play in this game. Another thing to add to the Redskins list of problems.
Robbie, under the 1 p.m. Pacific kicks, we got Denver at the San Francisco 49ers. 3.5 the Broncos are laying on the road, 45 the total.
Yeah, just a back-and-forth handicap for me all week long, Drew. Obviously, the Bronco injuries within the last 5 days are not good for them. When you lose Chris Harris Jr., your best defensive back on the team, that's troublesome. When you lose Emmanuel Sanders in practice this week, your best wide receiver, that's troublesome. Shaq Barrett, one of their top pass rushers, also out of this game. And it limits their secondary and their receiving corps for this game. So initially, a couple days ago, 2-3 days ago, my first thought was, let's go bet San Francisco plus the points here against the Broncos. But then you have to slow the cart down a little bit, Drew, because there's other circumstances in this game. San Francisco is not the greatest team of all to hitch your wagon to, especially if you just look at the matchup of Denver's pass rush, which is still intact, against a 49er offensive line that's given up 7 sacks in the last 2 games. 4 sacks to Tampa Bay, and then 3 to Seattle last week. So I think the Bronco pass rush could be a problem for San Francisco. They can cover up Chris Harris's absence in the secondary here. Broncos may have to play some type of deep umbrella type zone against the speed of the 49ers wideouts when you have Marquise Goodwin and then the way Dante Pettis has been tearing it up lately. They'll have to watch the deep balls here, but I think they can do that through pass rush and like I say, some umbrella type coverage. I think, again, in this one, it probably boils down to the Broncos' rushing attack. It's what they're going to have to lean on. Philip Lindsay's been tremendous so far this season. You combine him with Royce Freeman, and they've got one of the best ground games in the NFL. And the 49ers gave up 168 rush yards to the Seahawks last week, almost 6 per carry. So if Denver's going to win, and they're the team in the playoff hunt, San Francisco's kind of the spoiler. But for the Broncos, they're going to have to ride the running game, and they're going to have to ride that defensive front if they want to win here. The 49ers have been outscored 70-25 the last 2 weeks. Like I say, tough handicap for me because I'm not real interested in laying points with Denver, even though they have more to play for than do the 49ers. But I could still see the limited passing attack and the limited secondary being troublesome for Denver here.
Robbie, next game up, we got 125-126 Cincinnati Bengals at the LA Chargers. 47.5, 48 being the total across the board using Sportsmemo odds. Looks like 2 touchdowns. Heavy favorite here, the Chargers laying at home.
Yeah, if the Chargers can just avoid the look ahead to the Thursday night game that's following this one against Kansas City, in Kansas City, then I think they'll be just fine, Drew. They've been a double-digit favorite, 10 and 14 point in 2 of the last 3 games that they've played, and they covered them both. They laid 10 to Oakland. They win 20-6. They lay 14 to Arizona. They win that game 45-10. So double-digit numbers for the Chargers have been things that they can cover recently. So I don't see any problem with, the 14. I think that the look ahead would be the only thing I'd worry about here, because if we get into fundamentals, there's just no way to make a case for the Cincinnati Bengals with any offensive unit or with any defensive unit if we just take their offense without Andy Dalton and A.J. Green now. I mean, Jeff Driscoll was serviceable last week, but they did get sacked 4 times by Denver, and San Diego's pass rush is every bit as effective as Denver's is. You'd expect Joey Bosa in his 3rd game back now for that defensive line to turn it up a little more. I don't see much movement on the offensive side for Cincinnati against that defensive unit for San Diego. And then if we switch sides of the ball, there's just no way that how many times have I called him San Diego so far in this analysis? My goodness. But there's no way that LA can't do whatever they want, rushing or throwing the football. Justin Jackson fills in for Melvin Gordon and looks just like Melvin Gordon running the football. I think a real big fundamental aspect in this game is the fact that Cincinnati's linebacking core has been miserable all season long, and Phillip Rivers, when he's not going vertical up top to his wide receivers, they work that short passing game to the backside of the backfield and over the middle as good as anybody. And Cincy's linebackers have just been non-existent all season long, so they'll make some hay there as well. I can only recommend the Chargers here. Can't recommend Cincinnati. It would have to be something flukish for them to win the game, first of all. And I think it would have to be something flukish for them to cover 14 points. I can see a score in the realm of 34-10 here. Makes me look at the under as well. I think 47.5 might be a bit too steep for it here.
Robbie, we got 127, 128 up next. Detroit at Arizona. Looks like the number now 2.5. A couple threes out there. A little crazy juice on it, but prevailing number being 2.5. The Lions laying on the road. 40 being the total, Robbie.
Yeah, there's been some Lions action so far this week for sure. Not sure I would want to get involved with the Detroit side, but I can say this. Their last 6 games, the offense, and there's real reasons for the offense in the descent that it's in, Drew, and that has to do with the personnel losses that they've suffered here, beginning with the trade of Golden Tate, followed by the injury to Marvin Jones, followed by the injury to Kerryon Johnson. So there's been real reasons for Detroit to slack off offensively. They just don't have the weaponry available for Matt Stafford. They've played some good teams last 5 weeks. I think this is a step down in class for the Lions. Obviously, when you come off of playing Seattle, Minnesota, the Bears twice, and the Rams, now you get to look at Arizona. Maybe Detroit will be happier to see this type of team. You can't fault their effort whatsoever. They've put forth the effort, but they're just so shorthanded on offense that it showed up in their defensive numbers as well. I'll say this to show you how little faith head coach Matt Patricia has in the Lions offense right now. He had a couple of quotes that really made me scratch my head here. But last week, I'll just put some context around this and to put you in the situation that they were in. Less than 7 to go last week against the Rams. They're down 10. They have the ball, and they're showing no urgency whatsoever. Matt Patricia got questioned on that. How come there was no urgency? And Matt Patricia basically said they were working on having good controlled plays, and all they were trying to do was just have a really good drive. Now, when your head coach is resorted to, we're just trying to have controlled plays and we're trying to have a really good drive, and you're down 10 at home, that doesn't say much for the faith that the head coach has in the offense. So at this point, I just don't want anything to do with the Lions when that's the attitude. It could be very good, Drew, to tell you the truth, for an underplay in this game if that's the way Detroit's going to go about their business now. Just use clock, try and get signals straight, try and have a successful play. The problem with playing under, of course, is 40.5 is a really low number, but that could be impossible here against the Arizona Cardinals, who have the worst ranked offense in the NFL at this point in time. 2 teams that are showing you effort, 2 teams that are going nowhere offensively. The defenses will be the best units on the field. For Detroit, I would just advise anybody looking to play this game, these guys are going to play, but just check their status before game time, because the 3 best players on the Detroit Lions all had limited practice on Thursday. That was Matt Stafford, back injury, Kenny Golladay, their top wide receiver, quad injury, and Darius Slay, the corner, who's battled knee injury for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Check those guys out. Maybe under's the best way to go in that game.
Right, we've got an NFC East battle here with the defending Super Bowl champions Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys laying 3.5, depending where you shop. 44 being the total.
Yeah, we already went over the importance of this game from an NFC East standpoint, from a playoff standpoint. Those 3 teams, Philly, Dallas, and Washington, are all bottled up neck and neck. So all of these divisional games are huge. The first meeting between these 2 teams a few weeks ago, very slow first half, 13-3 Dallas at halftime, but then a big second half offensively. The Eagles win that one 17-14. But the game goes to the Cowboys 27-20 at a point where really Dallas, that's their starting point on the season. Since that game, they've become a very different football team. And, at this point in time, all around, they look like the better football team. I think a couple of problems here for the Eagles. The defensive secondary injuries have been well documented for 5 weeks now. Or 4 weeks, excuse me. If you go back to their last 4 games and see what the secondary has been able to accomplish. Against Dallas, they get lit up pretty good. Amari Cooper's just making his first start, I think, for Dallas. Dallas's passing game was nothing to brag about when this game was played the first time around. But Dallas completes 72.2% of their passes that night, 26 of 36 for 239. Next week, banged up secondary gets torched again by New Orleans. Don't have to go through the numbers, but anybody who saw that game, Drew Brees went absolutely berserk, and the secondary was beat up. Then come the Giants, who go for 300-plus yards in the first half of that game, and for some unknown reason, we know Odell Beckham complained about it. The Giants go away from attacking the Philly secondary. They go away from Saquon Barkley. They wind up losing that game. And, of course, last week, Washington can't take advantage of the depleted secondary either because of Mark Sanchez. So you got 2 games at the top of this where teams took advantage of Philly's problems in the secondary. And then you got 2 games the last 2 weeks that Philadelphia has won. But the teams just didn't take advantage of their weaknesses at this point in time. I'd expect Dallas, now that Cooper is really fully engaged with that offense, I'd expect Dallas to take advantage again of this secondary, which remains injured. And I'll add this to Philadelphia's list of woes. For the majority of the season, we knew that Philadelphia was one of the best run defenses in the NFL. But their last 4 games, 171 rushing yards allowed to Dallas. Ezekiel Elliott had a monster night, 6-1 a carry for Dallas in that game. 173 rushing yards to New Orleans the following week. 126 to the Giants on 7 yards per carry the week after. And then last week, 104 yards to the Washington Redskins, 7.4 yards per carry. Those numbers absolutely skewed by the 90-yard TD run by Adrian Peterson. You get the point, though. Even the dependable run defense is not dependable right now. To me, Philadelphia at this point, Drew, is going to have to outscore opponents to win. The only offense that they had, the majority that they gained over 400 yards against Dallas the first time around, but Zach Ertz was the majority of it. 14 catches for 145 yards. Somebody else has to step up for this team in order for them to be good offensively and to be able to outscore opponents as good as Dallas. And I'll tell you this, Dallas's run defense right now sits as one of the top 4 in the NFL, only allowing 91 yards per game. It's going to make life tough on Josh Adams and company. So for me, I think this game is all about Dallas. We've seen Philly money come in, but I would probably buck that and look to the Cowboys minus 3.5.
Robbie, last Sunday game here, we got 1-3-1-1-3-2 Pittsburgh at Oakland. Steelers laying 10 on the road, 51 the total.
Yeah, not much here, Drew, but I'll make the slight case for the Oakland Raiders just based on recent performance. And this is not saying that I've played Oakland, but I want to just make both sides of the case. It seems like such an easy game. Let's go play the Steelers. But before you get crazy, just know that their last 3 games, Oakland beats Arizona on that walk-off field goal, right? In Arizona, 23-21, they win. They follow that up with a game against Baltimore where they lose 34-17. And that final score, believe me, very deceiving. Take it from somebody who had Baltimore minus the double digits in that game. I felt very, very lucky to get out of there with the win. Oakland actually had closed to 20-17, only down 3 in the fourth quarter, and a couple of miscues late wind up giving Baltimore 2 more touchdowns and a cover. But Oakland was in that game almost all the way. Last week against Kansas City, they give up 40, but they score 33 and cover pretty easily in that contest against the Chiefs. So the Raiders under John Gruden right now, I think playing as good as they've played, or at least as competitively as they've played all season long. Here, they run into a team that needs a win in the worst way. There are doubters for Pittsburgh now seemingly everywhere. Steelers lose another game last week. So it's important for them to have a big game this week. And certainly they can, offensively, even without James Conner at running back, you would figure Ben Roethlisberger to absolutely torch the secondary of the Raiders. The question is, can the Raiders fight back offensively? And they've shown the last 3 weeks they're able to. I just don't know. I can't get to the Raiders yet because I think Pittsburgh's mindset is such that they'll come into this game looking to destroy somebody. And if I just match personnel up on the field, it's really no contest. So it's a tough handicap for sure. I think over 51.5 might be the best way to go. I can see Pittsburgh scoring 38 points here. If you get that, you need 14, that's 17 out of the Raiders, and I don't think that's impossible either.
Robbie, we got the Monday Nighter, Minnesota at Seattle to end it. We got 46 being the total. Looks like Seattle laying 3 at home.
Yeah, and if you're just walking up to the window the last 10 weeks and blindly saying, give me Seattle, you're 8-1-1 against the spread. They have been just a ticket cashing machine over the course of the last 10 games. 4-0 over the total their last 4. The offense has been very good. They've scored 27 or more in 6 of their last 7 games. And I think, it stands to reason, Drew. Obviously, Seattle's a different team this year, and I had thought coming into the season that they would be more of an over team. Russell Wilson and company have to outscore opponents because of the defensive deficiencies or the defections, so to speak, from the personnel that they used to have. Against Minnesota, it's a different story, but Minnesota's got defensive backfield injuries as well. I was very surprised that New England wasn't able to take even more advantage of a Minnesota secondary that was minus Trey Waynes, that had Xavier Rhodes playing injured, that has put Sendejo on the IR for the remainder of the season, and they're playing with a rookie safety. These are things that, perhaps Seattle can capitalize on here in this particular game. I know Russell Wilson's having a tremendous year. The wide receiving core, as long as Doug Baldwin's in, that makes Tyler Lockett even more effective. The ground game's been great for Seattle. A lot of reasons to point to the Seahawks in this game. Monday night in that atmosphere should be tremendous. But I don't want to sell the Vikings short here because the Seattle secondary, to me, is very vulnerable as well. It's shown up quite a bit this season. And when you have Diggs and Thielen and Kirk Cousins throwing the ball, I think you're going to get some points as well. The weather, surprisingly, not going to be that bad in Seattle at this time of year. Wouldn't worry about that too much. But again, I just said that Seattle's on 4 straight overs. That's the direction I'm looking in this game one more time. I think that Minnesota will be far more effective this week offensively than they were last week. Cross-country travel is not easy to play in Foxborough on Sunday and then go all the way to the Pacific Northwest for this game on Monday night. But I still think that Minnesota can move the ball against the Seattle defense through the air. Probably going to look towards the over here, Drew. We'll see. Probably make it definitive at some point. But for both of these teams, I think that's probably the way to go.
Guys, coupon code Veno half at checkout for half off any all access at sportsmemo.com. He's got his Friday night FCS quarterfinal game up. Also, Robbie, we got the Army-Navy game. Any quick thoughts on the Saturday college football solo matchup?
I'll say this, Drew, and when this game has been played in Philadelphia, recent history, it's been bad weather here, whether it be snow, whether it be heavy wind, whether it be something. And tomorrow they're going to get a decent day to play this football game, which is nice to see. You don't have to worry about the elements affecting which way you bet the game. Army's been the better team all season long, better on both sides of the football. For Navy, it's their bowl game, and plus the points, I think you'd have to watch out here because with that type of motivation, Navy certainly could be a troublemaker in this contest. And remember, Army's won the last 2. All of a sudden, it's Navy that's put into the underdog role that Army's been in for so many years. So for Zach Abey, Malcolm Perry, and these guys on offense, I think that Navy might be worth a look here tomorrow.
All right, Robbie. Well, guys, coupon code Veno half at checkout, half off any of his all access, and best of luck with your bets this weekend. Happy Friday to you, Robbie. Best of luck to you, and we will be back on Monday with the NFL opening line report with Teddy Covers. Best of luck with your bets, everyone.